up, RotoGrinders NFL Pick 6 show, sponsored by Thrive. The Week 11, we're in the double digits on the back end. We've made it. Usual suspects, we got Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis, John Daigle, 4 for 4, Bet Spurts. By the way, we should mention, get it out there in the open. We're going to be back next week. Well, back, of course. Well, 2 times, right? We're doing a Thanksgiving slate. That's in the works, right, John? We're doing it. It's going to happen.
That's our favorite slate. We get Jesper Horsted every single year on that slate. So yes, we'll be discussing the Thanksgiving, and then usually how it works is you kick it to Reeves and I about the Sunday slate, and sometimes we're ready for it, sometimes we aren't. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, we're gonna be breaking down Lions tight ends, like Mad Men. 150 lineups of Lions tight ends.
That sounds like a lot of fun. How much Brock Wright is too much Brock Wright? We'll find out. James Mitchell, there you go. He's lurking as well too. Is it Buffalo? Who plays Detroit on next?
Yeah, Buffalo.
Yeah. Think they're gonna be popular in the 3-game slate?
And they were on it last year too. So.
Man, yeah.
And best of all, last year, remember, they played the very last game. If you went into that Saints game with the Bills onslaught, like that was the winner. Tacking on like Matt Breida, I believe, was the perfect complementary piece to Josh Allen in that game.
Matt Breida, of course. Like, how would you not have Matt Breida?
That was the D-Jacks had the touchdown. We were on it, man. The one year we don't get the Bears. Like the one year we don't get the Bears on Thanksgiving, the Bears are fun.
That's the annual show as well, where I do like 5 shows because of my schedule that day, and ours is the last one. And I usually show up with a lot of alcohol in me. But this year, this year we're staying away from. I got a little too aggressive last year and had Maker's Mark next to me. We're gonna stick to like champagne or beer this year. We're gonna keep it a little calmer.
Last year, you and I jumped on the ship chasing show afterwards, and you did not. Your stream kept going, but you were no longer present.
I may have fallen off the chair. Yeah.
Ronald in chat, by the way, what's up, those that watch us live on YouTube? Do appreciate y'all hanging out. Says you guys got me my biggest win last year on Thanksgiving. So there you go.
Hey, listen, get that Christmas cash, Ron. Hopefully we run it back for you.
That's my favorite slate. Plus PS5 is going to be in stock for Black Friday. We're ready.
Yeah, that's right.
We got to pay for this stuff.
God of War's out. You got to get that God of War.
I just started playing the first one the other day. It's kind of fun. Yeah, I just got into it. I'm like 7 years behind everything.
It's all right.
Giselle, by the way, in chat says, "I swear this John guy is everywhere." Yeah, there you go. Wait till Thanksgiving.
He is.
The Thanksgiving slates.
I do record with a lot of friends around the industry. Yeah, I like talking football. I know sometimes it doesn't seem like it because I'm so tired, but I do love my job.
It is a weird thing where like you catch yourself complaining, like, "Oh, I got 3 shows." Oh, like, you know what? Like, you know how good you have it.
The common thing behind the scenes in Reeves and I world this time of year is to start your sentence off by saying, "I'm very grateful," and then it's usually followed by but I'm absolutely miserable, and it's getting dark at 4 p.m. Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's still a job.
Yeah, I'm happy.
But I'm grateful that I won the movie bet last week. We're going to be talking about that later on.
Lineup you had nice little Raiders Colts stack. That was nice.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I had that lineup and some other stuff too. But we're going to be talking about that later on the show. If you guys are not aware, myself, John, and Rich, producer Steve, we had a 4-man. The winner is going to force the other 3 to watch a movie of their choice. I have a whole bunch. We'll talk about it later on in the show, and I'm not sure how nice I want to be.
And let's say
Steve played Tony like a sharp. He's behind the scenes. You guys can't see Steve, but he's a sharp. You had Tony. We put up a lot of points in that tournament.
Yeah, you had a better lineup in Fanduel. Like you shared, you crushed somewhere else. Not you put it in the wrong. You didn't put it in our contest. You put it in one where you actually win American dollars.
Yeah. It's a good week. Like I've talked before. This is where the last couple of years has been my hottest stretch. Like when we hit November, I don't know if it's because the information we've accrued makes us more accurate, or just like more people are like coming in like that from season long. I don't know if it's a combination of all the above, but hopefully we stay strong.
And we'll talk about that contest in the movies at the end for everyone, not only to not be self-serving up front and think this show is only about that contest in the movie, but we don't have to end on tight ends, 1. Yeah. And 2, let's save the fun for the end. And that way, if people want to be a part of that, they can hear the movie, take the week like us to watch it, and come back and we talk about it at the end of next week's show.
Yeah, and I just got a great suggestion from Ronald in chat. Phenomenal. Here, this is what I'm going to do. I want to give away a week free of RotoGrinders Premium. Not in chat, but if you guys are watching this on YouTube on the replay, most people watch us in the replay. In the comment section, give us movie suggestions we should give going forward. So just tell us that. And if I pick yours, I'm going to pick somebody at random. The most interesting, the most clever, the funniest, whatever. I'm going to pick somebody. Get yourself a 1 week free of RotoGrinders Premium. If you can leave your Twitter handle, that would be helpful. Some way I can contact you if you actually win. All right, John. Anything else as far as that? How did you do? Because myself and Rich, I don't want to get in the May because I had a 200 on DK with Kenny Golladay. Oh, the worst. You're supposed to be happy. It was a good lineup, but good Lord.
If you would have played Nico Collins, how much money would you have won?
Well, I could have played MBS. I could have played the dude for the Packers, who I did play. He was in my pool. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Collins did. I don't remember what he scored a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
I would have won some tournaments, I think. Yeah, I didn't want to go too into it.
On FanDuel, I got the money back. I'm not having luck this year or I'm not building correctly this year in DraftKings just because I understand the game. I know what I'm doing in leveraging off of the chalk. The chalk is a chalk for a reason. They're just great plays. And so here I am like a donkey trying to get leverage off of these touchdowns.
Waiting for failure.
Away from 6,500 Justin Fields. I understand what's happening. It's no big deal. I suck it up and I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I was under the field on Fields, but
It hasn't been a good year for GPP Bro, for sure.
No.
And I am GPP Bro. It's not been a good year for me. But we're still alive. There's half the season left. I'm not worried at all.
It just takes 1 week, man. If you're a GPP Bro, takes 1 week, one lineup. It's all it takes.
And I'm more like Joey Knish. I am targeting small field stuff. I mean, I'm trying to play in the 222s and stuff. I'm trying to play sub 500 entry stuff. Where if I run out and hit, I'm hitting over everybody. I'm not trying to beat 20,000 people in a tournament.
To be fair, I'm also in those 222, 500 with you on FanDuel single entries, but I also haven't had luck in those yet. So we'll get there. I'm not worried.
I'll tell you what's been hot this year, if you guys haven't checked these out, is the quintuple ups, man. Those have been banging. Most people just throw cash game optimals into there.
Mm-hmm.
And those have been real kind of a spot where you can really kind of take a lot of leverage. I mean, you can get the 25 and 50s and you're popping those because you're just playing as cash lineups.
Just be a little bit different, right? Or you can do a 4v4 that projects for 1 or 2 points less and nobody's on your guys and you're getting, you might get crushed, but if you're finished last, who cares?
No, it doesn't matter.
You just got to win 25% of those or whatever it is. If you guys first time here, if you're not aware, talk to main slate. I can't imagine if you're first time here, but it is welcome. Apologies for rambling for the first 10 minutes of the show. It's just kind of how it goes sometimes. We do not discuss Sunday night games or Monday night games. The buys this week is all Florida. Florida's off and Seattle. An 11 gamer as far as the main slate. We focus on 3 main games. We break it down from all the angles possible. Then we run it back and talk about our favorite plays, position by position, as far as players that are not in those 3 main games. John, man, this is the week. Well, I was talking to Rich before you jumped on, and so the last couple weeks, to be fair, on Wednesday night I was like, oh man, I hate this slate. And once Sunday rolls around, it's you know what? Not bad. I can work with this. I don't know if I can work with this. I don't know. I don't know. Chicken salad. I don't know what I can do with this slate. Make me feel better about it. Do you like this slate or do you hate it as well?
I do. We do have some powerhouses, but we also have some concerns around the board for game script reasons, for weather reasons, which we'll talk about. I think we have one clear-cut quarterback that maybe we paid down for. Justin Fields got a little bit of a bump, at least, respect to FanDuel for putting him around Tua and Patrick Mahomes last week. Patrick Mahomes, who, of course, took down most tournaments on FanDuel at least. Fields was still too cheap on DraftKings, but a little bit of a bump, 7,600. You could argue that may be too cheap, but we'll talk about that game. So, yeah, I think there are a lot of different directions you can go for this slate. I think there's value at both running back and wide receiver, which there wasn't last week. And so I always prefer when we're in that kind of range for players.
All right. And the salary is just getting out of hand, too. We'll talk about it later on in the show, but you're not going to believe the players that are popping up in the optimals. I don't know if you've run up.
Also, you got to think, too, the context of this slate. Obviously, this slate in particular, the guys that are off this week, you name the guys on bye. It's just a massive blow to the wide receiver position. Obviously, we lose both Dolphins because it's all combos. You lose Lockett and DK on Seattle. You lose both Tyreek and Waddle. We lose both Evans and Godwin. And you lose Christian Kirk, who's been a top 10 receiver. Cooper Kupp got hurt last week.
Yeah.
So like the top of those are like all guys that are like consistently ranked in the top 15 every week at wide receiver. And they're gone. Just poof. Out of here. So so this wide receiver, I mean, if you go to like industry rankings, I set my rankings today for the website, and man, it is gross, the names, like, because there's I'm writing these players up based on expectations, and you're like, yeah, this guy, he's a wide receiver 3 in your lineup. You're setting like linear in like a linear list, and you're like, holy shit, this dude's wide receiver 17 right now. Like, oh my God. Like, just go look at any of the industry rankings and look at the names at the wide receiver position. So like this slate's going to be particularly fun. What you do there. Do you just try to pay up for one of these hammers, or are we just going to be throwing stuff at the wall? Because we know that the wide receiver position is inherently volatile anyways. Some of these guys that are going to be popular, like we'll talk about some of the guys like, the Paris Campbells, and, we'll see what ends up happening with like the Denvers and the Rams situations when we get there. But like, man, there are going to be some guys in some lineups this week that typically are like, you might be like, I might flex this guy in a season-long league. But like, yeah, that's where we are at wide receiver this week.
All right. Without further ado, and this kind of speaks to the slate, although it's a pretty big boy total. Chicago at Atlanta. The total is 50.5. Atlanta's a 3-point favorite here, John. It's in a dome, so no elements. We love that this time of year on the turf as well. Big boy number, 2 running quarterbacks, one that's just running out of his mind. What's going on there in Chicago Fields. It's great to see the elevation, though. I'm happy to see him taking this big step forward. Unfortunately, he's really, really expensive now. Where do you want to start here, John, as far as Chicago and Atlanta? And I don't know what to do with Atlanta's backfield.
I'll start with Chicago. Atlanta's has some interesting pieces too, but it's no secret what the Bears want to do. They're the first team in NFL history with at least 225 rushing yards in 5 consecutive games. Justin Fields in that time has set the NFL record for the most rushing yards for a quarterback in any 5-game span. But this is also a matchup where he can unlock his passing ceiling. Atlanta's secondary has benefited now in back-to-back games from playing that injured Chargers offense that I stacked like a donkey, and just 16 pass attempts against the Panthers last Thursday, who simply rode Deontay Foreman for 31 carries and 130 yards. But it's not like they've suddenly become good. Like, go back beyond those 2 weeks. Let's stretch it to 4 games back. Week 5, Tom Brady just looked 350 yards and a touchdown when that Bucs offense was struggling. Jimmy Garoppolo had 290 and 2 touchdowns. Joe Burrow, remember, 480 and 3 scores. And PJ Walker in week 8, the first time they played the Falcons, 317 and a touchdown for 8.8 yards per attempt. And this Falcons secondary may be getting AJ Terrell back, but still banged up in other spots. So honestly, it's another week where we're just really talking about ownership and what we can do if we pay for Justin Fields. It's not like Justin Fields is a bad play yet again.
How much do you think is a priority this week?
I like other options. I'm also the person who went underweight on him when he was 6,500. So maybe Rich is the person to ask about that.
Yeah, Rich, it's like a kind of this martingale thing where if you keep fading him, eventually it's not going to work, but like that, you might be broken on the streets in a couple more weeks if you keep doing that. Yeah, of course, now you got to pay him. He's 7.6K now in DK. Hurts, Lamar, Allen, a little bit more expensive than him. They have wheels as well. They can throw as well. In the dome there in Atlanta, are you prioritizing Fields? He doesn't really have a ready-made pairing that's super obvious. Cole Kmet. Is he healthy, by the way? He took a big hit last week. Is he fine going forward? I guess he's fine.
I didn't see if he practiced today or not.
He was a DMP, but Adam Hogue, who's a pretty locked-in Bears reporter here in Chicago, said there's no concern that he will play. So seems like he's good to go. Okay.
Yeah. Rich, how much are you prioritizing Fields this week?
Well, on this particular slate, I mean, he does stand out. We don't have Mahomes. He's on Sunday night. We don't know what we're going to get in the Buffalo game. Like that would be kind of, touch and go until we get till Sunday and have like a little bit more clarity because obviously the Browns defense can't stop anything. So if, the weather's fine, we're going to be hammering some Josh Allen. We do have Jalen Hurts in a dome too. We got Lamar as a huge favorite too, but we don't know what pass catchers Lamar is going to have. So, I mean, Fields does stand out at the top though, having like a really optimal matchup. And it's not just the past 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks have showcased like where the ceiling can go, right? Like he was getting you like that could complete, like he was the Konami code quarterback for several weeks before that. He's had 6 now top 12 scoring weeks, but the past 2 weeks where he's led all quarterbacks in fantasy scoring are when you're getting like the 175 rushing yards, right? I mean, he has 77 rushing points over the past 4 games. Like, that's absolutely insane where the ceiling is going. So if you fall back to like maybe being like that 20-point player, because like the 40-point player you can't compete with. Like, you have to play him if he's going to keep reeling off games like that. Now, can he keep doing this at this level? I mean, he's the first quarterback to have the same amount of rushing yards in back-to-back weeks, go for 150. He's scoring long touchdowns, like outrunning DBs. Absolutely insane. But he does stand out on this slate. Atlanta also can aid all the passing metrics, right? Because we know we're going to get the rushing. But like Daigle said, I mean, they're 31st in pressure rate. They're 31st in completion rate allowed. They're 27th in yards allowed per pass attempt. They're 28th in passing points allowed per game. And all those things do, when you pair them with his rushing floor, is just keep pumping up the ceiling. So, I mean, the price went up. He was like, in the last 2 weeks, he was egregiously priced on DraftKings. So, like, you had to play him. FanDuel's been ahead. Like, last week, they made him, like, he was the same price as Mahomes. So, you had a choice to make. You know, this week, if there's no Josh Allen, there's no Mahomes, and if you're just fighting between Fields and Lamar Jackson at the top, I mean, it's a really good spot again for Fields, where he objectively stands out to be better than those guys.
Do you want to play him naked, or you want to play him with Kmet? The Claypool thing is, I don't know what's going on there. They traded for him, and they're not really using him. What's the point? Mooney, I guess, maybe. But like, what's the best route here as far as Fields?
Yeah, so all these guys still are hyper volatile. Like, even Kmet, like, we still have a team that's like there's 25 and fewer targets available per game on this team still. So there's going to be a lot of volatility here still week to week. It's going to be all, did you run into those touchdowns? Because look at Kmet's lines, right? Like, Kmet's lines are nothing to write home about when you're looking at the catches and yards, but what column is getting there is the touchdowns. And it's funny, we have this year where, we entered with, Miles Sanders couldn't score touchdowns, and he's got a career high, he's matched it. Jacoby Myers couldn't score touchdowns, he's got a career high, and now Kmet is like finally popped the seal, and now he can't stop scoring touchdowns. But he's had 3 amazing tight end matchups in a row, and he gets another one here. I mean, Atlanta's allowing 5.9 catches per game to tight ends. It's 30th in the NFL. So, like, it's another good spot. So he just runs in another good matchup. Fields has a great passing matchup. So inherently you want to attack that. He's got Mooney's in a great matchup too. We'll see if AJ Terrell comes back or not, but Mooney plays in the slot like for 50% of his snaps, and especially since Claypool's been there. Well, Claypool hasn't played a lot. He's gone back to playing strictly outside though. So Mooney gets a good matchup too. So, I mean, I'm fine playing him naked, but I'm not going to go out of my way to stack these guys though.
I thought I was being clever last week, like being well over the field on Montgomery. I had some Hribar as well. That was the leverage move against all the fields out there. And then Hribar got hurt. Montgomery was worthless. But now Herbert's hurt, John. Montgomery. How do we feel about Montgomery? How much of that backfield is going to be his? Who's behind him? A guy named Ebner and a guy named Evans?
Tristan Ebner, and we've seen somewhat this situation before, because the one game that David Montgomery missed earlier this year, Khalil Herbert stepped in for 71% of the team's backfield touches, out-touched Tristan Ebner 20-8. So we assume that's Montgomery's floor, since they were in some cases giving him more touches than Khalil Herbert anyhow, even in the last month when it was supposed to be riding the hot hand. So we think this 20 touches and 71% of backfield touches is his floor. And so it's a good spot. I'm just worried that, and we've done this so many times in the past year, even last Thanksgiving, speaking of, I just always get worried when it's David Montgomery chalk week, even in a good spot. So that's my only concern here. Maybe Tristan Ebner gets those 8 touches and takes away from him. And more importantly, like last week, if you went that way, I know it didn't turn out well, but David Montgomery, you can still use at least as a leverage option off of a now more expensive Justin Fields.
Yeah, Rich, if you have a thought, by all means, go for it. Otherwise, feel free to jump over to Atlanta.
No, yeah, David Montgomery, especially on FanDuel, he's pretty cheap in the context of the slate, so you can get him in. Like I said, the touches are just going to be there on a team that we know it's going to run the football. I mean, there's an outcome in this game where it is like 20-17 because both these teams run the football, because the Bears' defense is absolutely awful. Like that's the other, the other side to this is that as the Bears offense has been scoring all these points, they have to score all these points because they're like what they're putting on the field defensively, like they can't stop anybody. It's just absolutely wild. The opponents have scored a touchdown now on 34% of their drives on the road. It's the second highest rate in the NFL. Atlanta should have no trouble running the football over the Bears too. So it could be just a run game, right? Because 61% of the Bears offensive yardage comes from rushing. It's the highest rate in the NFL, and Atlanta's third. So this could be a game where what if there's just like 35 combined passes in this game or something stupid? There's probably one of those in the range of outcomes too. But the Falcons are really easy because we don't know what running back to play because they're all going to play.
Yeah.
That's where we are. They're not going to go out and extend Cordell Patterson, I doubt, for like a huge allotment of snaps because even when Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley were playing, they were splitting reps. They've also found that both those guys are effective, so they can rotate those guys in. So you're just really hoping to play kind of a touchdown whack-a-mole game, which would favor CPAT, but none of these guys catch passes. They throw to their running backs the lowest rate in the NFL, so you're not getting any run out there. And then we could play Kyle Pitts if we want, right? Like at least we've evolved. Like we've made like the Pokemon evolution, right? Like we are no longer Pikachu where it's like, will Kyle Pitts get targets? Like we've gone to Raichu status of like, can they complete targets to Kyle Pitts now? And that's kind of where we are. The last 2 weeks, 202 air yards, 126 air yards, 55 receiving yards. And he's wide open on these balls. Like you look, he's behind. Kyle Pitts is all alone. He's behind the defense, and they just can't complete these passes to him. You look at him on the season, just 50.9% of his targets this season have been deemed catchable. That's the lowest rate among all tight ends with 25 or more targets on the year. The next closest tight end is at 62%. So, I mean, the gift and curse of Kyle Pitts, man, he's wide open downfield, but low leverage targets are what he's getting in terms of success rate.
He's also played and increased 53% of his routes from the slot the past 2 weeks in CPAT returns. And the slot is where the Bears are allowing a league high 10.8 yards per attempt. So the matchup makes sense, but again, it's very cross your fingers as it always is with Kyle Pitts, except on this tight end slate. Maybe I do cross my fingers.
No Kelsey. We don't know what's going on with Andrews yet.
Also, if we're playing the touchdown whack-a-mole game, like, dude, this Falcons team total is the second highest on the main slate. And I'm not saying like it's going to come to fruition, but like the Ravens-Panthers game, Ravens with the highest team total, the total's only sinking. And so like the Falcons might actually close by Sunday as the highest team total of this entire slate. CPAT's only 6,700 on Fanduel. And we know how volatile it is given that, 2 weeks ago, first game off injured reserve, led the team with 11 carries and 14 touches. Then the next week, short turnaround, gets only those 6 touches. Like I will suck it up for 6,700 on Fanduel and play the whack-a-mole game.
By the way, to your point, Rich, as far as the pace and how slow this game may go, and be like a bunch of runs killing the clock. I always look at the Derek Carty's, the blitz game level factors. So the highest game as far as projected game plays, just to kind of get a scale, 140 plays projected for Dallas, Minnesota. This is the lowest game as far as projected plays, 123.2. Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be a stinker. Just a bunch of like 7-yard and 6-yard, 4-yard rushes.
Yeah, as good as the Bears have been, like that structure of football for generating the amount of points they have, they scored 29 or more points in four straight games. And they've done it against 2 good defenses, 2 bad defenses. But like you've just got to be hyper efficient, right? And like running the football like at that level of efficiency is something we don't see often, like Daigle just highlighted. So I mean, there definitely is still some fragility here on this side, but here we are, man, chasing it.
Does anybody want to endorse Mariota as a cheap quarterback option?
You could guarantee me he wouldn't get benched in this game. I might play him, but I can't do it.
I think you can stream him. You can stream him in season-long leagues, but like, what's the like real run out here that you're hoping to like gain from fantasy, right? Like, does he have a 30-point game in him? Because if you're playing fantasy football on DFS streets this year in the year of 2022, if you're not playing quarterbacks that can push 30 points, like, what are you even doing?
I mean, the only counter to that is, this isn't the best quarterback week necessarily, especially if you assume, Buffalo gets squirrely as far as the weather. And for what it's worth, Vegas, 41.5 for a Buffalo game against a Cleveland defense, a 24.5 total. they're anticipating some sort of goofiness there, right? We'll see. Like,
it got hammered once the weather came. Like everyone just bet it.
What did it open at? Do you remember?
I want to say 48.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I can find it real fast.
That's a big move. Is LaShawn McCoy playing this week in Buffalo?
He's great. We need him. We need the snow tires of shading. It was 46.5 was the open.
I can't be the first one to mention LaShawn McCoy, can I?
Oh yeah, the snow tires.
Oh, just amazing. He was an incredible non-snow splits were spectacular. John, you got anything else as far as Atlanta's offense you want to get excited about? You want to throw out there as far as some stats, or shall we move on?
Lots of cross your fingers, but trust me, that does not mean I'm not playing them.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like the nature of the slate. It's a good way to sum it up. At least that's how I feel right now on a Wednesday night. Game 2, these teams are amazing. Detroit and the Giants, 46.5 is the total. Detroit, 3-point dog here. Detroit out of the dome here, Rich. I'm sure you've seen the dome, non-dome splits for them. They've been horrendous on the road. Giants, 3-point.
Unless you play the Bears.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, there you go. There's an exception to every rule. What about against the Giants? And also, is DeAndre Swift going to be allowed to play football at least to a greater degree this week, or just no? Yeah, that's it. He plays his, 15, 20 plays, and that he's going to stand in the corner. He's healthy. He's not healthy. Do we know? Does it matter?
It's very puzzling to try to figure out. He's healthy enough to dress and to come out and get some touches, but not really play at all. 19 snaps last week, 10 the week before. He hasn't had more than 10 touches in a game since week 1. But still finding a way to have efficient touches, right? Like he had a touchdown. He got tackled at the 1-yard line on another carry. Still finding his way to efficient touches. Doesn't it feel like it's just looming though? Like one of these weeks he's going to have like 18 touches and everyone's going to be like, damn it. But I feel like a lot of people are going to be chasing that too. Like he's just to be the popular GPP Pro play, right? Like, because what if we run into those touches? It's real tough to try to grasp onto. This is a great matchup though for the Lions run game if you want to get in on it. The Giants are allowing the most yards prior to contact per running back carry in the NFL. So you got a little bit of run out there. Looks like DJ Shark is going to come back this week. He was practicing today, so at least we won't have the Tom Kennedy experience that's been going on the past couple weeks. Maybe that thwarts everyone that's still playing Cleve Raymond. He was popping in optimals for like a couple weeks there because he's just been on the field getting exercise. But great spot for the Sun God again. And we saw last week, he had a great matchup again last week. Delivered. He didn't get the touchdown, but he had another 11 targets. This is what we get with him. And then this is a great spot for him because we know the Giants blitz at the highest rate in the NFL, right? They blitz on 45% of passing plays. Wink has not met it down when the other opponent's throwing the football or he's not sending an extra guy. Well, Amon-Ra St. Brown has been targeted on 40.3% of his routes against the blitz. He has a 44% team target share against the blitz. Wow. 44%. Like it's basically like one of every 2 blitzes. Like they're just throwing. He's hitting the hot. Like Amon-Ra's the hot. It's going out here. And then when you look at like the Giants this year, if you look at the game logs, like of what receivers have had the biggest games against them this year, it's all these pseudo slot guys because Amon-Ra's like a 50-50 slot guy. Christian Kirk, CeeDee Lamb, Randall Cobb. It's like all these guys have had the best games against the Giants. So, yeah, the Sun God, again, looks pretty good. We see him back in the box again.
The past 2 games as well, he's accounted for 38% of Jared Goff's targets since T.J. Hawkinson was traded. And more importantly, we're not going to play Jared Goff, on the road in this slate anyways. But like Jared Goff has thrown 3 touchdowns since T.J. Hawkinson has been traded, and all 3 have gone to a different tight end. So like you can't even stack anyone with him except Amon-Ra St. Brown. So it actually like concerts all of Detroit's targets pretty easily.
John, do we like anybody else in Detroit? Sure, you can play the running game like Rich was talking about. You can get some Swift, some Jamal. There's some, it's a little goofy what's going on there, inconclusive, as far as what's happening there in their backfield. But other receivers, okay, we're getting I'm sorry, who'd you say was coming back this week, Rich?
Shark practice. Shark practiced, then they activated or opened his window, but they haven't like officially pulled him off. I don't think. But like, it looks like he's gonna play though.
It's probably like $6K on DK the way their pricing is. He's 4-2. I'm so bitter about it. He's 4-2. Okay,
we can't dunk on DraftKings for the entire year of how lazy they've been at pricing and be mad when they finally price everybody up.
Well, there's a happy median,
That's true.
Goldilocks is like, you went too far, All right. John, is there anybody else you like in Detroit that's worth talking about?
Honestly, no. I'm waiting to see how their backfield shakes out. Like Rich said, it's a good spot to maybe get ahead of DeAndre Swift. We never take Wednesdays into account too heavily, but Jamal Williams, a little DMP on Wednesday today with an illness. We'll see how that shakes out. Maybe that gives us a cause. Like we were playing Tony Pollard last week anyhow to be ahead of DeAndre Swift in this game, even if Jamal Williams is active. So something I'll be watching because I do want to be ahead of the DeAndre Swift boom. On the other side of the ball, though, if what could go wrong if we're trying to save 2K with Daniel Jones instead of Justin Fields, but at the same time, the Lions have allowed a top 5 finish to opposing quarterbacks in 5 of 9 games this year, and an overall QB1 finish on the week to Tua and Fields in 2 of their last 3 games. Most people want to logically play Saquon Barkley as a response to Detroit's front 7, permitting the 4th highest explosive run percentage this year and 5 yards per carry allowed to opposing running backs. But maybe the rushing yards just get soaked up by Daniel Jones because he is averaging 7.6 carries and 6.3 rushing points per game on the season. So I do think Daniel Jones is a pretty sneaky player that has a large ceiling here if we want to jam in instead.
I think it was you that mentioned Slayton last week. Was that you, John?
Yes. And Kenny Golladay made it much easier after he recorded his second drop in the first half because literally following the intermission, Darius Slayton came on the field in 2 wide sets, scored a 54-yard touchdown the next play. And this is the spot for him. Unfortunately, it's such an ugly wide receiver slate, even though I do have a lot of ugly plays I want, and we'll talk about those later, that Darius Slayton will probably get steamed a little bit, even on 5K on DraftKings. It's pretty cheap.
Yeah, we're going to have a Darius Slayton chalk week, I think.
Yeah, I think so too, yeah. Slayton has led this team in yards per route run since he initially got worked into the rotation in week 4. He's been a top 36 wide receiver in 4 of his last 5 games. He's been a top 20 player in 2 of his last 3, and he has a 20.9% target share in his last 3 starts. So Slayton is admittedly an awesome play with Daniel Jones.
Yeah, Isaiah Hodgins is a person, allegedly. He's the guy that replaced Kenny Golladay. He's still minimum 3K, but he's an exerciser, I assume, right, Rich?
I mean, listen, I tweeted when Lawrence Cager got that touchdown on Sunday. Every week, someone for the Giants catches a pass that I had no idea was still in the NFL. Like, week 1, it was Richie James. Then it was Marcus Johnson in, week 3. Lawrence Cage. So if Isaiah Hodgins is going to catch a touchdown, sure. In the context of the Giants season, I'll believe it, The one thing you say, if Slayton does become chalk, as good as he's had more than 7 targets in any game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had more than 6 targets just once. So that's what you're paying for. If you get a run out where he's not efficient, it's not like we're buying targets, right? Because you can play Paris Campbell at 4,300 and know, you might get double-digit targets, right? With Slayton, you're paying and you're getting these 6 to 8 targets. Not even 8, he hasn't even gotten 8. What are you going to do with them? So there is a lot of fragility there still too. It's a great matchup and a good spot, and he's been getting there, but you are paying a premium for not a lot of targets.
How much of a priority is Barkley?
Dude, 35 carries last week.
That's a lot.
He's had 2 games where he's over 30 carries. The Giants are in an actual hell fight for the postseason and Brian Daboll's first year. They are using this dude up. He's got 227 touches. He had 228 touches the past 2 years. He's just going to keep getting the football. He's their entire offense. Because they have to keep using him, because if you watch the Giants, every single completed pass is on a Daniel Jones bootleg, and you can't do anything unless they're doing the run game. So just keep jamming him in. He's going to get the football just so many times against the bad defense. You got a home favorite.
No, go ahead. No, I was going to say, my only concern, and maybe it's completely unwarranted, is that the only other time he had 30 touches this year, the following week against the Packers, that's when he handled just 67% of the team's backfield touches, and he had a season low in snaps. That's the only time he had. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to check around. Yeah.
He left the game in the London game.
London, yes. Okay.
That's when he had the shoulder stinger and left, and then came back and scored a touchdown. He shook some dude. He took some dude's soul on like a pass. I forget. It might have been Darnell Savage. I can't remember.
Did you watch that one live Sunday morning, or did you watch like the condensed game?
I have a Sunday chat with subscribers, and we watched it together as a family.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, I answered start sit questions for 2 hours. No.
I don't feel bad for you anymore. You could have it.
Giants 7-2. Man, good for them.
And this is like another winnable game for them, right? Like,
yeah, they should win it. I think. Why wouldn't they? Wow, who are these tight ends? Lawrence Cager? I've heard.
He was a wide receiver.
And remember, Tanner Hudson, who ended the show one week because it's 2022, ran a route on 80% of dropbacks 2 weeks ago. They returned from their bye. They just split him and Lawrence Cager in routes. Just let them mirror one another.
Okay, I've heard of Hudson. I don't think I've heard of Cager. If I have,
he's a former Jets receiver turned tight end.
We got anything else in this game? We're moving on.
Yeah,
Dallas,
I think so.
Minnesota. Dallas 1.5 point favorite. Did I write that down correctly? Is Dallas favored in Minnesota? What?
It was. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Rich has a different spin on this, but the perfect recipe of what had to happen to sink this number for the Cowboys being favored happened. Like the Vikings pulled out a close game against what is considered the best team in the AFC, and the Cowboys were 195-0 in franchise history with a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter. They are now 195-1 because of the 3-6 Packers. Like the flukes that had to happen for both of these teams to reach the point where the Cowboys weren't 3-point favorites happened, and thus the Cowboys are now 1.5 favorites.
Yeah, I just thought it would be maybe an even game or Minnesota by 1. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, I'm not a quote unquote Vegas guy or whatever. But I thought that was an interesting number. Dallas on the road here in Minnesota. Minnesota kind of a tough place to play in. 8-1. The Vikings, I know people call them they're kind of a fraudulated one. Well, we'll see. Zeke limited practicing. We saw Pollard insane usage last game. He got there again. What do we have to say here, John? It goes without saying. If it's Pollard season, if Zeke's out, we're on Pollard again. Yes.
They didn't move his salary on DraftKings, so what are you going to do? And last week, his longest run was 14 yards. That wasn't like the week before where he exploded for a 20-plus yard touchdown to 50-plus yard run. Like he grinded his way off on 72 snaps as a bell cow to over 100 yards. That's a big boy stat line.
Yeah. Anything to add there, Rich? We like Pollard if Zeke's out, and that's that?
Yeah. Listen, he's played three career games without Ezekiel, and he's got over 20 PPR points in all of them.
I do think Vikings offense is interesting here because the Cowboys are still the only defense creating pressure on 40% of dropbacks. And that's been Cousins' weakness when it gets there. He ranks 34th in completion rate for 6.5 yards per attempt under pressure. But the last two offenses now around their bye to face the Cowboys have shown the blueprint to the rest of the league. Justin Fields, Dave Montgomery, and Khalil Herbert combined for 212 rushing yards. Only 60 of that was Justin Fields too. And Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon combined for 200 yards and 5.4 yards per carry. The Packers ran for 144 yards on second down alone in that game, basically conceding on second and long, and it didn't matter at all because Dallas couldn't stop it because running the ball also entails you tuck Micah Parsons away in the front seven as opposed to allowing him being like a linebacker on the outside and covering your quarterback and creating pressure. The Vikings are top 6 in dropbacks per game and only calling 20 running back carries per week. But this is the week, honestly, to get Dalvin Cook going and DFS pivot from Justin Jefferson to Dalvin Cook because the matchup is so great.
You agree with that, Rich? If you're going to get one of these studs here in Minnesota, you start with Cook or you start with Jefferson?
Yeah, Dalvin Cook's. I played a lot of him last week, and the Dalvin Cook experience is a tough ride, I will say. He keeps getting there. But, you look at all of his metrics in terms of success rate. He's just been a complete boomer bust runner. So you might have to live through 2.5 quarters where Dalvin Cook literally has 17 rushing yards and just hope he pops a 50-yarder. But that's been his MO so far. So if you can live through it, just don't watch the games. hopefully you just go to the box score and you see, oh yeah, Dalvin Cook had 160 yards. Cool.
Also, if you're watching the game, you never know if it's Cook or Madison. They both have like single digits.
They 2 and 4, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what you can't. You just don't. It's not very distinctly clear.
I think we got a little bit of a higher floor than what's perceived too, though. And again, I say Dalvin Cook the better tournament play, since Justin Jefferson is always an awesome play. I know Rich has more on that as well. But remember, Dalvin Cook also suffered that shoulder injury in week 3. And so like in games around that injury, right? In weeks 1 and 2 and 3 games post-bye, he hasn't seen fewer than 5 targets in those 5 games. Whereas the 4 games he was injured, he totaled 5 targets in all. Also, this past week was the first time since week 1 he ran a route on over 70% of dropbacks. So I do think Dalvin Cook has this floor, but also a boom ceiling if they play their cards right and like call a game plan that can let them dominate Dallas.
Rich, was that the best catch we've seen in our lifetime? The Justin Jefferson. You consider the situation as well. I suppose the Giants one too. David Tyree in the conversation, but the 4th and 18 last week. I thought Courtland Sutton had the best catch of the week, and like, oh man, that was one up pretty quickly.
Dude, there was a lot of great catches last week. Sutton had Diggs in the same game. Diggs had an awesome catch. I mean, the Courtland Sutton one is crazy when you think about it from like the dynamics of it, like how he caught it like this.
The science.
Because when that ball's, I was like, there's no way he caught that, right? Like I thought everyone called it incomplete, and I'm surprised you saw that, Dean. Was that on Red Zone? That was like in Denver territory.
It was. They had to show they're contractually obligated to show Denver, and that was the only positive play they had the entire game.
Yeah, how many Denver plays did you get to see last week, Dean?
The less I get to see.
That's good. There's the one pro. That's a huge pro for Red Zone is you don't have to watch the Broncos.
The Russ thing is, how many more years do they have for Russ? Like 8 years? Like 10 years? Oh my God! I mean, I don't want to say the guy's toast just yet, but oh man!
They're the only offense averaging less than 15 points per game in the entire NFL. It's very bad.
Most disappointing team this year, is it fair to say, is it Denver?
Yeah. Rams coming off Super Bowl.
I would say
because the Rams are like useless on offense.
Their line is just putrid.
Yeah. I would say Rams just because they're the Super Bowl winner, but I think expectations the Broncos are very much in that orbit.
I got like everyone talks about their MVP tickets they have hidden away for Geno and whatnot, and they're not going to win. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes now. But I have Russ MVP tickets, and trust me, I'm literally hiding those away. Like I don't want to see them ever again.
Geno can get comeback player of the year, right? I assume.
He's the favorite. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. I think we might talk about it last week on the show.
Did you mention Saquon Barkley? Yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned Barkley because remember I was talking to Braden about it, and we were having a conversation because we were talking about because Geno really technically hasn't come back for anything except for his career was in the grave, and that's what he's going to get comeback player of the year for. But he's the favorite. I saw he's current favorite.
D Staub in the chat also mentions the same thing I was going to say. I feel bad for George Pickens because he had a top 3 catch in NFL history earlier this year, but our civilization just forgets everything within 24 hours.
Listen, these guys are just aliens now, man. Like,
yeah, they're very good.
Speaking of aliens, Martavis Bryant is going to be in the XFL. If you guys saw that, remember him?
Rich remembers Martavis Bryant, but there's no way he is going to watch the XFL.
Bengals here makes me watch it.
Which it might be actually.
Have a chat with your people, with the people on the site, and watch XFL and grind it
out. Saturday afternoon of the off season, Rich. You don't want to have a chat about XFL?
Negative. No.
Hey, if there's DFS,
because the problem with all these football leagues is the same problem we're seeing at the NFL. Like, there's not 32 good quarterbacks, and football without good quarterback play is just so bad. It's a totally different sport, right? Like it's just so rough, and that's the problem with all these leagues. It's just that you can't find viable quarterback play, man.
Well, like I don't watch a lot of college football these days, but I know back in the day when I would watch it, like the Big 12, no matter how these guys would never go on to do anything, but they would have shootouts like 40 to 50 based upon schemes and whatever. Like, can't you scheme it up and you still get high scoring shootouts in the XFL, like because the defense make the rules slanted for the offense? Is that not something we can do?
You asked Daigle. Just Jason Garrett scheming those things up, Daigle.
It's not pretty. Even though Bob
Jeff Fisher's the coach of one of his teams.
Bob Stoops was of the Renegades was the best minor league football coach we've ever seen, and he does return to the XFL. So we may have some excitement here.
I was outraged when, and I don't even care about the XFL, but seriously, you're trying to get people excited about a brand of football, and who thinks, I know who's Jeff Fisher, honestly, the worst football.
Dude, remember last year, I don't even know what spring league we were talking about last year now, USFL. Remember, Shea Patterson was the first overall pick. And Shea Patterson wasn't good in college, let alone good for a developmental league. I was shocked when he was in. That's when you knew that league was going to tank, the moment that happened.
The problem is all these viable quarterback teams that are backups. Think of Chase Daniel, right? And how much, why would he ever go play in a league like that? He's just printing money in the NFL, just being a backup. You would need that level of quarterback to go play in these, right? To be incredible. But they're getting the guys that are the practice squad guys. I don't even know. You said Shea Patterson. Who are these guys, man?
PJ Walker.
Yeah.
How old do you think first round pick Martavis Bryant is XFL? I think it was the first round in the XFL.
He's not 30 yet, right?
He's exactly 30.
Okay.
Yeah, turns 31 in December. So
as long as they don't allow Paxton Lynch back, because watching him command a Jeff Fisher offense in the USFL was the worst thing. Rich, Lance Lenore in the USFL had a 35% target share every week, and you couldn't play him because the targets were so bad. He was the worst DFS play. It was amazing.
Yeah, so he was Kyle Pitts.
It's Kyle Pitts. Yeah.
Look at these Lance Lenore air yards.
Buddy, if you want to, even though if you want to talk about a field to attack, no one understands prayer yards in USFL DFS, so it was a good field to play. It had an edge.
I'm pulling up some of the weird teams.
I mean, the best player, the only one of the dudes that came out of it was Turpin, and he's the best guy in your league was a kick returner. And
Turpin, to be fair though, may even make Tony Pollard expendable next year as a free agent, because Pollard's whole role was to return punts and kicks, and Turpin's awesome at that. He's a very good special teams player, which is pretty shocking because he's 5'1".
I'm sidetracking the show, but I just Googled the teams in the XFL. I know isn't the Rock's associated with the XFL, right? Isn't he a part of the? So is this an homage to the Rock? I know the Brahma Bulls, the San Antonio Brahmas. That's a team.
The Brahmas.
Is that Brahma Bull homage? Is that what that is?
Yeah. The only issue is that San Antonio. Oh man, it shouldn't represent the Rock. It's a rough city. Even though isn't that where our own head chopper lives though? I believe.
Chopper, I believe, is in San Antonio. He's a Texas guy. Yeah, he's a big Houston. Oh, he's a fan of Houston, so I don't. Yeah, but I think he's in San Antonio now. I've been there for a couple of days.
Last I recall, for a Super Bowl party that Dan Back should definitely bring back if you're listening. We were having cocktails in the rooftop bar of Nashville, and Head Chopper mentioned he lives in San Antonio. I'm sorry for giving away your location, Chopper, if you're listening.
He wants to stay off the grid. He's not.
I mean, he lives in San Antonio. He's off the grid. Don't worry.
He's packing up his
witness protection. Just
to
the spot.
To nudge us back to the entire point of being here, though, CeeDee Lamb is going to be 30 to 40% rostered. And I don't know how you get there, given that he's fresh off a career high in catches and receiving yards. It is an amazing spot. But remember, we were here with 30% rostered CeeDee Lamb in tournaments earlier this year. And man, I think I'd just rather pivot on to Dalton Schultz, who's still carrying, Reeves talked about him last week. Schultz is still carrying a 21.5% target share in his full games with Dak Prescott this year. So I do worry about CeeDee Lamb in tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, on Fanduel, CeeDee Lamb's really expensive. He's keeping company with the guys like Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson. Well, he's not. I would say no. He's $1,000 cheaper than Justin Jefferson. He's in on, but he is right around Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, and Amon-Ra is a little cheaper. Amon-Ra is a little cheaper on DraftKings too, and he's probably a really good direct pivot. We talked about him and the spot he's in. CeeDee Lamb, the metrics have been there all year, right? Everything we were citing, it's just that Dallas was throwing the ball 25 times a game. And that's the thing. Everyone cites all these usage stats, but don't put them into context, right? Because CeeDee Lamb, his first 100-yard game of the season last year, when you throw the ball 45 times, all those great usage stats, now we could do something with them. And that's what happened, because all year long he's been top 3 in target share, target rate per out run. But you weren't getting the overall team volume to kind of elevate those to compete with the elite wide receivers at his position. When you have 48 dropbacks, now we can take those and say, oh, now we got real big ceiling to cook with here. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how he is played. I do think a lot of people still just play Jefferson. He's pretty interesting because of one, the trade for TJ Hawkinson, right, and what that's unlocked so far. Through 2 games, all of Justin Jefferson's depth of target stuff has just gone completely nuts. And it could just be a 2-game sample, but remember, prior to acquiring TJ Hawkinson, this team had the lowest deep ball percentage in the NFL outside of the New York Giants. That's why they acquired. They needed another intermediate targets. They brought in TJ Hawkinson to just soak up all this underneath stuff. And look at where TJ Hawkinson is getting targeted. Good for TJ Hawkinson. But what it's really been great for is Justin Jefferson. Over the past 2 weeks, 31% of his targets have been intermediate targets. 24% have been deep targets. Prior to acquiring TJ Hawkinson, he had an 18% intermediate target rate and a 9.9% deep target rate. He has as many targets on throws 20 yards or further downfield the last 2 weeks, 7 of them, than he did the first 8 weeks of the season. So now we're getting elite target share still from Justin Jefferson, but now we're getting like actual types of targets that are like rich in fantasy fat, and we're getting huge runouts. That's how you get 193 yards. Instead of getting like where he was getting like the 10 for 104s, the 10 for 105s. Now he can turn into push 200 yards with those types of targets. Also, Cowboys #1 in the league in pressure rate. Justin Jefferson has 37% of the Vikings targets when Kirk Cousins is pressured, which is second among all wide receivers. So yeah, we can look at that and say, all right, well, who's the foxhole guy? It's going. I'm just going to lob it up. You saw that's the play, right, on the catch.
Yeah,
lob it up. Lob it up. He's down there somewhere and make a play. It is interesting, though, the matchup. Dallas is really good against opposing wide receiver ones this year. They have faced Jamar Jefferson. They faced Mike Evans. Cooper Kupp did get them. A.J. Brown scored a touchdown. They're not giving up a lot of big yards, these guys. These teams also played a year ago, and Justin Jefferson only had 21 yards in that game. So that's going to be fun to see like how that matchup goes. But we just did see Christian Watson score 3 touchdowns for the Cowboys. So.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to the chat. Just a couple throwback names there been thrown out there. Ben DiNucci, speaking of the Cowboys.
DiNucci.
AJ McCarron, who I think the last we saw Brent Musburger was like slobbering over his girlfriend. That's the quarterback, right?
Yes. I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about that.
Brent Musburger, who just survived those comments and now owns VSiN. Yes.
Yeah, I think he's the Raiders play-by-play guy on the radio or something. I feel like that's what he does. Is that not correct? That sound right?
That and president of Vegas Sports Insider. I believe that's the acronym of VSiN. Yeah.
There you go.
Goodness, I forgot all about that.
He had a live orgasm on the championship game.
He really did.
He couldn't believe it. Like he's never seen a woman before.
Oh no, he was ready to risk it all on live TV. Like he was.
We got anything else here as far as Dallas?
If that happened now, man, like, I mean, it would be everything. He'd be all over Twitter.
Awfulannouncing.com, the headline.
In this game, there's a lot. Isn't there a lot of stuff? We brought up Schultz. I don't know.
Talked about Schultz, Pollard, Jefferson.
I guess we did.
Dak throwing downfield. I love Dalvin Cook, even though
it was kind of scattershot.
I do want to see how projected ownership shakes out because I do like both Jefferson and Cook. Right now I'm just projecting Jefferson to be significantly higher rostered than Cook. Yeah. So, and then I don't think, there is reason for everything we mentioned about Foxhole, Justin Jefferson, and Dalvin Cook healthy receiving. There is reason to tag along Kirk Cousins here, but maybe that's too much. I don't know, but I like this game a lot, actually.
It's a late game, though. Like Kirk Cousins, notorious. I know, like night games, he's not good at. This is 4:25.
It does get dark at 4 p.m. now, so that counts. You're under the lights by the time it hits 3:30.
Do we have a Dak take? He's just sort of fine. Is that kind of where we're at? Like he's not something you definitely need. He's cheap enough, I guess.
But like Rich was saying, he's throwing downfield more, but we've also only seen 2 healthy games from him. And he's still not, he does have 4.5 carries in back-to-back games. So he is adding a little more of a rushing floor, but even though the stacking is clear between Schultz and Lamb, that's where all the targets are going. I still don't think so for me.
All right. Producer Steve, fire up those Thrive props. Do want to tell you guys about Thrive Fantasy, the sponsor of the show, join in on the fantasy prop action this NFL season with Thrive Fantasy. Should note, by the way, obviously NFL podcast, you guys are going to want to hit the NFL props. We're going to be talking about one of their featured contests over there. There's 20 props. You got to pick 10 of them. You got to go 10-0 if you want to really win some money. I think it's $100,000 prize pool and 20 or 25 the first. That's what it was last week. I believe that is where it's at again this week. And just want to mention they have other sports as well too, NBA, MLB when that's in season, obviously all the sports, anything you can think of. Easy to play, no salary cap style contest that revolves around an over-under style player prop. Again, each prop has a fantasy score associated with that prop. The riskier the prop happens to be, the higher the fantasy score. You rack up the most points for your share of the prize pool, and we're going to give you a nice, sweet deposit bonus. Of course, we won't be telling you about it if we're not going to be hooking you up with a nice deposit bonus. Use the promo code GRINDERS, that's GRINDERS, when you sign up for a deposit bonus up to $250, as well as free tickets. How do those free tickets work? If you deposit up to $499 or $100 to $499, you get 2 free $20 contest tickets. If you deposit $500 or more, you get 6 free $20 contest tickets in addition to the $250 deposit bonus. All right. We do have up on screen all the props that we're looking at as far as this week. John, hopefully you've taken a peek and you have a side, you have a lean. We got to be ambitious. We want to get a fair bit of points as well. What do you like on the board?
You get more points if Saquon Barkley goes over 91.5. Let's start there. Let's take the 110. We talked about all the reasons why he's pretty much the chalk on this slate, and we love him.
You can run for 3 yards a carry and get there.
Yeah, it's what an amazing 20-point bonus we get. It's like a free 20-point handicap. And then scroll down a hair. I think I saw. Rich, if you see something, point it out.
Let's see.
Gosh, Josh Jacobs that's an aggressive number for even, but I do kind of like Jacobs this week too.
Is Stafford going to complete 23.5 passes? I mean, it's only 85 points for what it's worth. Less is 115. I'm just, it's just a disaster as far as that offense overall. Maybe some garbage time nonsense.
I'd love to know he's completing them too.
Like, who's catching these passes?
They're gonna blitz.
The whole plane's built out of Tyler Higbee targets right now.
Yeah. Or Ben Skowronek getting 14 yards on 7 targets.
That's one of the first one that kind of jumps out to me.
I do worry
they're going to under on Diggs touchdown. If the weather is insane,
play the weather angle.
You get 110 points. You get a positive on that. So
I'm okay. I think they're getting sharper. These numbers are sharp. DJ Moore, we haven't seen his target share without Robbie Anderson and Christian McCaffrey from Baker Mayfield, but we still saw the throws from Baker Mayfield, and those are not accurate or good, Dean. So I worry about DJ Moore, maybe less honestly in this game.
Why is
5.5 catches is a pretty aggressive number for DJ Moore though?
For Baker Mayfield.
Didn't DJ Moore catch did you just say, you might have just said this, and I apologize. I was looking for Barkley as a projected total rushing yards. He caught 6 of 14 passes. What was it was a nice percentage, but the pie was so weird. Is this not about right? Last week, Carolina completed 14 passes, or there's 14.
They threw 16. They only threw 16 passes. PJ completed only 10 of them, but that's because also they just didn't need to run at all.
Yeah,
but we've also seen DJ Moore come back to life the past 2 games, unfortunately, from poor quarterback play. He's totaled 6 catches for less than 50 yards the past 2 weeks. It's not been pretty.
Burrow's passing yards pretty interesting. The under. You look at his passing yardage without Jamar Chase the two games. In week 1, he got there yardage wise on the Steelers, but because they ran 100 plays that game. But the Steelers really kind of one of those teams that they played too high, 60% of the snaps against Burrow, which has kind of been that, the bugaboo all year. So that one might be a little bit interesting, especially with the injuries the Bengals have on defense. So maybe that one. why is there even a Najee Harris prop? I mean, this goes to show you how down bad you are if you took Najee Harris in fantasy. We're 11 weeks in, and his rushing prop is 49.5.
The Steelers had no carries of 20 yards going into last week's game, and then they had 4 against the Saints, which is both a detriment to the Saints defense and the Steelers offense. And Joe Burrow, TJ Watt back on the field. It's such a small sample. It's only 2 games, but now opposing quarterbacks are averaging 6.3 yards per attempt. They're averaging over 9 yards per attempt with TJ Watt off the field since week 2. He has made quite a big difference.
Do we have, since you mentioned it, Rich, Harris 6'5" on DK, but Warren is 4'9" on DK, 5'7" on Fanduel. Do we expect an unseating to some extent here as far as
he's getting just enough touches to like impact Najee Harris, but not enough touches on his own.
Yeah.
You look at the past 2 weeks where he's right around 35% of the backfield touches his last 2 games. That's just not enough work.
And I forgot what I was going to say. Go on.
By the way, Barkley projected for 97 yards on a Wednesday night, according to Derek Hardy's The Blitz, for what it's worth. 6 short of Derrick Henry, who's, I don't know, what is Derrick Henry even playing? I'm not
Tomorrow.
even sure. Okay, there you go. I don't know who's playing Thursday.
That game's supposed to be like 20 degrees too.
That'd be fun.
I was going to say on Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, also Steelers' 3rd lowest team total. Like they're more than field goal dogs with the Bengals coming off a bye on the road. It tells you we're probably going to get a pretty pitiful output from the Steelers offense this week.
Rams Saints 38.5 total. We talked about
Good
Rams
God,
offense.
that game.
It's in a dome too. Like, what if this was outdoors? Why is Dalton like? What are we looking at? They're like, yeah, we want to stick with that guy. Like, what is Winston doing in practice that like you're looking at Dalton like, yeah, that's our guy. Like, I was surprised. I thought there was going to be an unseating here as well.
I mean, the last 2 weeks, that offense has been, and they've scored a touchdown on 2 of 20 drives the past 2 weeks. Just it's completely toothless. Like Alvin Kamara looked like he was kind of back, right? Like for a stretch. And then, man, I mean, and Chris Olave, like these guys have been torpedoed like by this offense, this run. I mean, even Olave, you look at like kind of his game log, and like we've been citing how good he's played, and there haven't been like a lot of spike ceiling weeks lately here for him either. So, I mean, we're dragging down the guys we care about, Andy. Like we need some production. I'd rather just have Jameis come into the hair on fire and we can just get like the goofy run out, but. This game in particular, this is slappers only, man. GoldenEye, this is rough. I don't know how we can get touchdowns in this game.
So what you're saying is, Rich, you're not ready for Juwan Johnson chalk week on DraftKings at 3,100. Is what you're saying?
No, I mean his routes fell all the way off. But here's the thing about Juwan Johnson, and I don't mind if anyone wants to chase touchdowns at tight end because who the hell cares, right? You're gonna play a touchdown or bust guy, but like you have to put the context. Like, so Juwan Johnson led the Saints in targets, right? How many weeks is he going to out-target all of Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, and Jarvis Landry? Like, how many of those games are there going to be over the course of an NFL season, right? I think we just got it.
Saints are 3-7. Like, what's the point? I mean, I guess I know Winston's not a part of their future either.
They're in the NFC South. They think they're alive.
I guess it's not over, right?
No. Why do you think Mariota hasn't been benched yet? They can't bench him when they're competing. Otherwise, they absolutely would have sat his ass already.
Is 5-6 leading that? Is that what's going on?
The Bucks are 5-5.
The Bucks, yeah. Somehow the Bucks, who
they beat all of it. Oh no, they lost to Carolina. I'm sorry, but they beat the Saints. They beat the Falcons.
The fucking Bucks.
5-5.
Dude, listen, the Bucks. This is all setting up. Like the Bucks are they're gonna play the Giants in week 1 of the playoffs and be a favorite, like a road favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they won't be because they'll probably host though. But they're gonna end up playing like the Giants. They're gonna probably play like a team like the Giants in week 1 of the divisional round.
Week 1, round. The Bucks are making the Super Bowl because everyone sucks in the NFC.
But I mean, that's where we are. Like the Bucks are gonna meander their way through the season, play one of these teams that is we don't really believe in, and they're what if the Bucks play like the Giants and then in round 2 they play the Vikings?
Yeah. That's realistic. That could happen.
They'll be favoring both those games.
Mm-hmm.
Fox is rooting against the Bucks, right? Don't they have Brady? Wouldn't he jump in the booth or do something for Fox if they get eliminated? Is that not a thing?
When he retires. No guarantee he retires after this year, but they said when he retires
or ever.
Also, like
bag with Greg Olsen, because Greg Olsen's incredible.
He jumped up the ranks really fast. Yeah, he's good.
On one hand, I feel bad for Greg Olsen because it's not fair because he is good at his job. And for Brady to just come in and usurp him on a higher team for Fox, that's not right. It's politics. At the same time, I have a personal vendetta against his cadence. He sounds like a teacher. He sounds like a nature documentary. Someone who speaks on them, where he like gets really whispering and he details incredibly about like the cornerback sneaking up. I don't like it. It creeps me out. That's my only complaint about Greg Olsen.
I just don't understand. Like again, like get your money, good job. They paid Brady $375 million for 10 years, and like, does this conversation take place in any household? Hey, do you want to watch like Bears Bucks? No. You know Tom Brady's announcing it. Oh yeah, I'm gonna watch it now. Like,
well. They saw Drew Brees try and speak for a year and said, okay, somebody do something about this immediately.
I got to ask you guys, though, about this Rams-Saints game. Because, when I'm doing the write-ups in that game and stuff, and I'm looking at these players and stuff, and I'm like, you know what? Like, what is Allen Robinson's price in DFS this week? Dude, he is 5'6" on DraftKings, and he's 6'6" on Fanduel. What the hell?
Outrageous.
He's more expensive. Look at on DraftKings, he's more expensive than Jacoby Myers, Adam Thielen, Darnell Mooney. All these, like, he's 600 more than Darius Slayton, who Daigle brought up. Like, how? Like,
we've discussed how, because DraftKings has flannel special Rainmakers packs coming out for the holidays, $200 a pack, Rich. They're more worried about that than Allen Robinson's price, for sure.
But how is he priced up on both sides? Like, did they just like set Allen Robinson's price in week 1 and like just no one's ever adjusted for the season that's happened so far?
No one's played him, so they just left him untouched. The algorithm didn't see him.
Yeah, I mean, he's more than Myers on FanDuel. He's more than Devontae Smith on FanDuel. Like, man, wow.
All right, we should run it back and give our favorite plays position by position. Do check out Thrive Fantasy. Grinders, Grinders. Again, sign up, deposit bonus up to $250, as well as those tickets we talked about. Grinders, Grinders. John, some quarterbacks we've yet to discuss that are jumping off the page you want to play this week. What do you got?
Go to Rich. We've talked about literally my quarterback pool. Unless Rich is going to convince me into Jalen Hurts. No, we've literally talked about who I'm going to play.
Rich?
I mean, I think Jalen Hurts is gonna feels like nobody wants to play him, right? Like I feel like he has no buzz at that price point, like for the content, and all he's done is consistently get there for fantasy, like the entire year. And we got the Eagles coming off of a loss, like they had to come up a little bit, and against the Colts, like the Colts had this magical, like, dude, Jim Irsay was throwing a party like he was some kind of genius. Like, dude, if they never played Sam Ehlinger, they'd probably have at least one more win. Like, they probably beat the Commanders for sure with Matt Ryan in that game. And, like, you're the one that sabotaged this thing.
What was that score, by the way? They didn't announce until warm-ups. They announced, like, the last second. I don't like this, especially going from the NBA world. That's bad enough. But
I didn't even know until the game was going on that Matt Ryan was in the game. Like, I was like, oh, shit, Matt Ryan's in.
Let's not normalize that. I know it was Matt Ryan, so who cares? But I don't want that normalized going forward. We got to get rid of that.
Luckily, we weren't playing any of them, but yeah.
But you never have like situations like that very often in the NFL where they can even pull something like that with the quarterback position.
Yeah,
you don't. Let's be honest. You don't have much situations like the Colts in general. What happened this past week between Jonathan Taylor? We'll get there in a second. Between Matt Ryan, between the Colts in general going on in the NFL. Also, that's the thing. It is reminiscent of just 3 weeks ago when Jalen Hurts against the Steelers, and no one gave him credit. No one rostered them because thinking, okay, we're not going to get pushback at all, and so no one played them. And then Hurts goes for 280 and 4 touchdowns against them at 3%.
And even the opposites, like the Colts for the entire part of the season have been miserable. Up until last week, they led for 6 offensive snaps in the second half, and up until last week, the Eagles never trailed for a snap in the second half. And like this could be a stomping, man. And that you get Dean, you get him in a dome. You get a mobile quarterback in a dome.
You get a concerted target share because we're not worried about Jack Stoll stealing.
We remove a guy. So we remove a guy from the equation.
It already only went to 3 players. Okay.
I was going to ask.
Rich did talk me into it, actually.
Stoll, Jackson, and Calcaterra. Any of these guys worth noting? So
Jack Stoll came in for Dallas Goedert in week 4 whenever Goddard was injured and ran a route on 37% of dropbacks over Grant Calcaterra. But that was Calcaterra's first game back from injury as well. And so I believe he profiles as the more receiving tight end. Yeah. At the same time, it's probably going to be a timeshare in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, none of those guys are doing what Goddard did.
Yeah.
So. And Goddard was already a guy.
Or 2.5. That's why I was asking.
We couldn't even find targets for Goddard. Goddard cleared 6 targets twice. So
Hurts, AJB, Jalen Hurts, and Devonta Smith, and you run it back with Jonathan Taylor or Paris Campbell. Okay, we may be cooking with gas.
Smith was going to be a guy I was going to bring up because Indy plays zone coverage at the 6th highest rate in the NFL. They play cover 3 at the 2nd highest rate in the NFL because their guy, Gus Bradley, never met a down he didn't want to run cover 3 on. Against zone coverage, Devontae Smith is actually out-targeting A.J. Brown. He's got 25% team target share, and it goes up to 26% against cover 3 zone looks. So I do like some Devontae Smith this week too as well, and he is cheaper than Allen Robinson.
Yeah, the overreaction in Allen Robinson's pretty outrageous. Let's talk about running backs. The running backs we've not talked about just yet, Rich. Who are you liking this week as far as running backs? Our projections seem to really like Joe Mixon, for what it's worth.
The guy that just had 5 touchdowns, the projections like him, Dean?
Well, I mean, our projections generally don't assume, because you had 5 touchdowns last week, you're going to get 5 again this week.
Well, expected point models have listen.
Yeah.
He still didn't even get all his expected point regression out of the way. He's still 26 points below for the season in expected points scored.
He's annoyingly tied with T. Higgins now the past 2 games too without Jamar Chase. Annoyingly because I'm probably not going to play him in the slate and I'm going to piss myself off.
I mean, you can play him. I think he's a lot better play on DraftKings than he is Fanduel. Where I think he's 9K on Fanduel, and I think he's 7.4 on DraftKings. Yeah, that's a lot more palatable, I believe, than to pay up for 9. If I'm already paying 9, I might as well find that 700 to get the Saquon because we have a larger sample this season of Joe Mixon not being able to run the football well than the sample that we saw as a huge home favorite against Carolina, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for 9K, I think if you're going to play in some tournaments, it's fine. But I don't think he's a guy you have to jam in over there. DraftKings, because the one cool thing about Mixon, when you incorporate DraftKings, is he's about to blow past his career highs in targets and catches. He's already there. He has 50 targets, 38 free catches. Might get there this week. So you are getting that catch bonus. And then with Jamar Chase being out, he's getting involved in the passing game.
Besides Mixon, who else do you want to talk about as far as running backs?
I mean, we didn't talk about Kamara's kind of interesting just because if you think the Rams really just have no fight, right? How do the Rams score points? It could just be a high touch game, right? We saw from James Conner. James Conner wasn't particularly good in that game against the Rams last week, but he just kept getting the football. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what you're hoping for, I guess, if you're looking at Kamara at this game at home. I think you can keep playing Ramondre Stevenson. I'll let Daigle talk about Nick Chubb. And then both Washington guys, I think, you're not going to be able to play these guys in cash because of the split. But this is a team that ran the ball over 40 times last week. They're probably in a spot where if they want to do that again, sure. We just target Houston every week, right? And if J.D. McKissick's going to play, we know we have basically this even 50-50 split. And both guys got goal line carries, so you can kind of pick your poison here of playing these guys. But I do think both Washington guys are interesting tournament plays too at their price points.
You got a preference, John, as far as Gibson versus Robinson? Gibson 5.6 on DK, Robinson 5.3.
I lean Robinson, but more on FanDuel just because we're getting those touchdowns, 39 carries the past 2 games. And like Reeb said, 6 different running backs have scored at least 23 fantasy points against Texans this year. So they will, even though Gibson was tackled inside the 5 this past game, most likely they lean on Robinson in that area of the field. So I think sneaking Robinson in is a great choice. if we play Jalen Hurts, maybe if we don't, because there is a chance, like Reeb said, the Colts just get the shit kicked out of them. But like this Eagles rushing yard stat without Jordan Davis is probably going to catch on and get him steamed, Jonathan Taylor, by the time we kick off on Sunday. So we'll see, since it is volatile. But in Philadelphia's last 4 games, Ezekiel Elliott rushed for a season high, 81 yards. Jalen Warren and Najee Harris combined for 6 yards per carry. Dameon Pierce rushed for 139 yards. And the efficiency wasn't great, but you saw on Monday night, Washington bullied them for 40 running back carries and 2 rushing scores. And more importantly, Jeff Saturday just said, threw his hands up in the air and said, I'm just going to use my best players, whatever. Yeah. He put Matt Ryan back in. He only threw to Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell. And Jonathan Taylor, not only 22 or 26 running back touches, but a season high 90% route rate on their dropbacks, just running out there every single down. So Taylor, I think, also has a high floor, even though both of you used him against me in our tournament, and I tried to pivot off of the Juju Smith-Schuster instead into flex too. And
you see though, Fanduel wasn't having that shit. Like he was 7K last week.
Was not working out. Was not working out. I was hoping for 2 touchdowns, and that did not work out. Anyways, though, Jonathan Taylor on DraftKings, I think, is a higher floor than perceived. Nick Chubb, if everyone's scared off this game because of snow, like, mind you, the Bills, since their Week 7 bye, have allowed 6.2 yards per carry. Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, and Michael Carter alone combined for 338 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 8 catches the past 3 weeks against the Bills. It is an amazing spot to run Nick Chubb out there. Now, if it is snowy, everyone's going to logically connect to the ground game and maybe play Nick Chubb. So we got to watch the ownership till Sunday morning. But I love Nick Chubb regardless in this matchup. Also, Devin Singletary, he's still commanding these backfield touches ahead of James Cook. He's 5,800, scores 2 touchdowns last week. He goes to 5,700 on FanDuel. I don't know how that works. So Nick Chubb, Devin Singletary, skinny stack, absolutely. And then the picture you can paint for Josh Jacobs' receiving floor makes a lot of sense because Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow on IR, and Jacobs' route rate has now increased in 3 consecutive games. His 68% route rate last week was his 2nd highest of the season. Plus, he's still no running back behind Jacobs has handled more than 2 carries since week 3. In terms of like getting a lead, which the Raiders, I understand, they don't win games, they still get leads. They're now playing the Broncos, run funnel defense, and just leaning on Jacobs. That's what they do. So game script and everything works in Jacobs' favor this week as well.
Loser gets relegated. Who says no? Like, we got to relegate the loser in that game, right? Broncos, Raiders.
I mean, they are the Raiders are at least taking up a lot of money. They got a lot of the NFL cap soaked up in this shitty team right now.
Kicked off the island.
Also remember, Jordan Davis splits, they were in the worksheet 3 weeks ago. So all those cool stats
nice. Okay, I didn't know that. Good for you.
So you can read the worksheet for free this week too, but 3 weeks ago they were highlighted when he was originally injured. Now he's like the talk of all the splits, 3 games too late.
There you go. You're on top of it there, Rich. Receivers, what do you got from Rich?
This is going to be, like I said, we ran down the guys out this week, right? Like this, you're going to see some funky wide receiver plays this week for sure. Not just in season longs, but in DFS. I don't know what happens with the Denver wide receivers. We'll see. Hopefully maybe one day we'll get the Kendall Hinton, tour again. I would love to see retribution for Kendall Hinton.
He was the quarterback, right? That was the quarterback for 1 week.
And like, go back to that spot. Like, people like dog on that game. Like, I remember it had a tweet and like, people, you didn't watch the Kendall Hinton game. It was the worst quarterback game ever happened. Like, imagine if you're Kendall Hinton, right? Put into this spot. The dude he's converted college quarterback, Wildcat quarterback that is playing, trying to cut his teeth in the NFL, trying to make a position change as wide receiver. The team gets COVID during the week. They bring him up from the practice squad and say, you have to quarterback an NFL game. And like, people like think he's like some kind of joke. Like, imagine you being put in that spot, like any player being in a spot. Like, he was in the worst possible situation he could. Like, he deserves almost a medal for what he has to come out and do from in football stance. Like, it's an impossible situation, and he's like a punching bag for it.
It's hard enough this time of year to keep everything straight, given that dark early, clicks go down, because people are losing their fantasy leagues. So season-long clicks and views go down. No big deal, even though all of us are still in the betting and DFS street, so everything stays the same. It's hard enough, though. but the pandemic year, man, it still gives me PTSD when we mention that, because I remember I was at a poker table and my fantasy life notifications went nuts. And you look down and it says Melvin Gordon starting at quarterback. Kendall Hinton wasn't even announced as a starter yet. They just said, we're going to play Melvin Gordon quarterback, which tells you they're going to run 40 times. And like, I think I about had a mental breakdown, because then you got to update everything. And it's a late Saturday night. You're on wine as well. And it was a disaster. And good for Kendall Hinton. I do recall saying bench him, because there's no way he actually throws the ball. To be fair, I think he went 1 of 9 in that game, right, Rich?
I can't remember. It was rough, but but people.
It wasn't his fault though. It was not his fault.
Yeah, he was like a joke to
practice squad guy.
Dude is in this a no-win situation, man.
Yeah,
it's like asking an accountant to be a line cook.
Yeah, it was just it was insane, man. And I hope he does get a chance to get retribution. He did miss practice today though, so it looks like we won't get to see him. But the Raiders, the slot thing with the Raiders has been real, man. We saw it again at Paris Hilton last week, so hopefully we do get him back. But DraftKings, Dean, still is cheap on a few guys. I know you wanted some cheap guys.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin is 5'9". On DraftKings. Ludicrous pricing. And he did play on Monday night, so he was grandfathered in. But over the past 4 weeks, 32% team target share, 4th among all wide receivers. 56% share of team air yards. That's 1st among all wide receivers. He's been targeted on 27% of his routes. That's 6th. He's played really good defenses over that span too. He's going against Houston Texans. Not so good of a defense. They're allowing a league high 9.7 yards per target to opposing wide receivers and 15.1 yards per catch. They just don't face a lot of targets because everyone's running down their throat in the second half. Nico Collins in that same game, Dean, only went up 100. In the 6 full games that he and Brandon Cooks have played, he has 321 receiving yards to 272 for Brandon Cooks. He has more receiving yards than him in 5 straight games that they've played together, and their target per route rate is almost identical. And then Paris Campbell on DraftKings is 4,300. Matchup not so good, but target shares in his last 3 games at Matt Ryan, 19.6%, 29.3%, 33.3%. 45% of the receptions the Eagles have allowed to opposing wide receivers have come from the slot. That's the 5th highest rate. He is only a DraftKings only play because he's getting no yards per target and no yards per catch. He just needs a lot of targets to get there. But those guys are cheap on DraftKings, Dean. You can fit those guys in some lineups.
You'll be happy to know that Kendall Hinton hit my threshold of an optimals on a Wednesday night. He's hit 55%. I maxed out at 55%. Ben Skararnik is at 39%. And I don't know how this happened. Wednesday night, it's not perfect. But Jahan Dotson is popular? That can't be right, can it?
Don't do it. Do not do it. He was all ready before he returned from injury, because I get these season-long questions. Like, he scored 3 touchdowns and 3 end zone targets. He was literally living on touchdowns. He did nothing else. And now we have, like Rich said, Taylor Heineke or Terry McLaurin's target share has increased in 4 consecutive games, 4 consecutive season high marks from Taylor Heineke. Don't do it. John Dotson's not your guy.
I heard this too. Robin Chat he said Paris Hilton and not Paris Campbell. I thought I heard that too. And I'm like, did he say Paris Hilton?
He did, but we're in week 11. Let it happen.
What do you got, John?
Kendall Hinton, Paris Hilton. I was thinking about Hinton and Hilton too much.
I'm not kidding. Rich took all mine. Literally all mine. Nico Collins, Terry McLaurin are absolutely in my pool. Nico Collins, how is he 4,100 on DraftKings? That price is absolutely insane. Like, that's your cheap value of the week. And then I already mentioned Darius Slayton at 5K. So my wide receiver pool is significantly lower than my running back pool this week. That's going to be my toughest to dwindle down.
All right, we'll get to our movies in a second. I have to recommend a movie for you guys to watch. We'll discuss it next week. But we do have to knock out tight ends. Jawan Johnson was mentioned in passing. I think it was by you, John. He is right now popping on DK, which seems outrageous. But that's the nature of the slate, I suppose. Freiermuth and Njoku, if he plays, is interesting. For the 19th week in a row, maybe Foster Moreau could be kind of sort of someone interesting. Did you like any of this tight end nonsense?
Yeah, Jawan Johnson, his route rate has gone down the past 2 games as Adam Troutman has returned from injury. But even then last week, 66%, which is not a threshold we you should give a shit about usually, but it's the tight end in week 11. So whatever. He scored touchdowns in back-to-back games. I'll take it. He's an athletic player. And then let's wait on Corey Davis's injury, since we've seen Tyler Conklin basically be an every down tight end, a route on over 80% of dropbacks the last 3 weeks, over CJ Uzomah as well. And Corey Davis was injured. So Davis didn't practice on Wednesday. If he's still out, I think the fallout really is Garrett Wilson still leading in targets and Tyler Conklin leading like this tight ends room significantly in routes run. I believe the last time they played the Patriots just a couple of weeks ago, both these players were in winning lineups in the slant and millie maker on DraftKings too, because they were so cheap. So yeah, I think it's a clever fallout to watch for.
Rich, tight ends?
Yeah, I like Conklin as a dart if Davis is out. I think you can go back to Dulcich. I mean, the playing time was there. You just had a crappy run out. Raiders, bad defense. You can still target there, especially like we said, if all these receivers are going to be out for the Broncos. Like, it's easy to get there on him. We don't know what we'll see. What happens at Mandrews? We'll see if Mandrews plays. Obviously, if he doesn't, Isaiah Likely will be really popular. Higbee doesn't have a good matchup, but he's only 4K on DraftKings, and he has 16 more targets than any other player on the Rams outside of Cooper Kupp. So, like, why hunt for the guys like these other? Like, why play whack-a-mole with these guys? They haven't been good. Like, Stafford's already throwing a bunch to this guy, right? And he's 4K. The matchup ain't good, but 4,000 is doable. Pat Fryermuth's got to get there eventually, right? I mean, like, we keep bringing him up.
Dude, he's right there on FanDuel too, like or on DraftKings, he's right behind Cole Kmet. Like, it makes so much sense. And we haven't seen the jailbreak game from Kenny Pickett. Like, at one of these games, Kenny Pickett's going to have to throw a ton. They're not going to be able to pull off 32 running back carries and 8 scrambles again. And that's the case without Chase Claypool. What happens is target share. So Pat Fryermuth is a pretty awesome play.
All right. If you guys want to take part in our movie bet shenanigans, we appreciate y'all listening. We're going to talk a little movies for a second. I wasn't really sure how kind I should be, or how nice I should be, or how mean I should be. So I kind of I selected, and I also wasn't sure what you guys have seen. Like, I don't know how if you're cinephiles or not. I assume you guys are, but I don't know. Like, I'm not going to sit here and recommend like Shawshank Redemption. It's like, well, if you guys haven't seen Shawshank, I'm sure you've seen it before. So what's the point of having?
I think there's probably low odds you'll find a movie that none of the three have seen, right?
And,
or all three. I mean, like,
okay.
I kind of think the whole point is to be fun.
Like, all three haven't seen.
Whatever your definition of fun is, like whether it's Cobra or something like shitty action movie, which I love shitty action movies. I think that's the whole point. But it's up to you.
I'm setting the precedent. I feel like I should be mostly nice, because eventually I'm going to lose one of these. Like, for sure, it's going to come back and haunt me.
I don't want to watch anything good. I'll say that.
Oh, okay, that's weird. So you don't want to watch a good movie? What a strange.
No, give me The Wrench. Give me The Longest Yard Adam Sandler remake. Give me something fun and bad.
Okay, well, that I wasn't prepared for that. Producers,
give me The Room. Give me something.
Everything has to be also shorter than like 2.5 hours.
Okay, yeah, I'm not going to give you a 3.5 hour
anime series. Yes.
Rise, Roar, Revolt. We're not watching that.
I don't even know what that is, but I'm
No,
definitely
You should
not
watch it. It's very enjoyable.
Please don't give it to me next week.
I won't. It's 3 hours, so we won't be doing it.
I was thinking football, and I was thinking like football. Oh, this is a football show. Maybe football movies. What's the worst football movie? And then I was thinking like we could talk about the greatest athlete of our generation. Air Bud, 5 different sports. Of course, golden receiver. 7th inning fetch, that's the baseball one. A World Pup for soccer. World Cup's around the corner. He's a great volleyball player as well. Spikes back. But then the Kevin James football movie with Sean Payton, I thought would be kind of fun.
Now we're talking.
That seems like
Daigle's watched it already. I think it came up on this podcast.
I have watched it. It's not good, but I'll rewatch it and take notes.
If you've seen it before, I don't want to. Yeah, okay. So we'll put that in the back pocket right now.
But it would be worth it to make Rich watch it. So I think that'd be fun.
I think Daigle talked about Sean Payton's hairpiece at one point on the show.
Absolutely, I have.
It's probably, and you know what? I'll be a sport and I'll watch it with you guys. So just so I can have the conversation, because I've never seen it before either. I can't imagine. And I was thinking about Little Giants, and that just angers me. You guys are aware of Little Giants? Yes, maybe.
What do you mean angers you? That's a good movie.
Because Al Bundy, Ed O'Neill, is the worst defensive coordinator since like 1972. The annexation of Puerto Rico, it's a tie game. They're on their own 1 yard line. They have to go 99 yards. There's one play left. It's a tie game, or they're down or whatever. Ed O'Neill decides to blitz and he bites on the fake. Like, put all your guys on the 50-yard line. What are we doing? Is there
That's a
nobody
big brother move. That's what big brothers do.
Oh my gosh. You know the play, right? The annexation of Puerto Rico. Like, why is everybody biting on the fake? Do they have to go 99 yards? It just tilts me. Like, I'm happy for Rick Moranis, but
To be fair, the number 1 overall pick in the actual NFL draft was in the balance, and Greg Williams sent cover 0. So those plays do exist. They're real to life.
Ed O'Neill approves. You like that. You like that call. So I have a kind of a good. So okay, I made a list of some good movies, and somebody suggests The Cooler. You guys, has everybody seen The Cooler? Or nobody's seen The Cooler. The Cooler is a fabulous gambling movie.
I have not seen The Cooler.
I haven't either.
So, see?
I haven't either.
Oh my gosh,
there it is. So you found one we all haven't seen.
Okay. So it'll be The Cooler then. I was gonna give you. Have you guys seen Deep Water on Hulu? The Ben Affleck movie. It's supposed to be like suspenseful, but it's more hilarious than anything. So you've seen it, Rich, right?
Yeah.
I think
I've seen Deep Blue Sea. Does that count?
Oh,
spoiler alert.
There's a second Deep Blue Sea.
Wait, that's the movie. That's the movie.
I think it was a sci-fi sequel.
There's no way it includes any of the original cast.
Oh
right?
God, no. Well,
no.
Except for what Thomas Jane.
Even though Thomas 2 of them live, yeah.
Wait, I guess Sam couldn't make the sequel. Spoiler alert.
No, yeah.
Yeah, but Deep Water. It's because it's like supposed to be. I want to talk about Deep Water with you, Rich, just because that ending scene, like everything about it, it was more funny than suspenseful. Was it like spiders or something? The bike chasing scene at the end was insane. But The Cooler, William H. Macy, Alec Baldwin, I believe he won an Oscar, was nominated for an Oscar it's a fabulous, it's a gambling movie too.
Where do we watch it?
I did not go to Just Watch for that. Let's see. Where is that available? It's I don't think it's at Redbox. I'm pretty sure Redbox would not have it in stock. It's been like 20 years or so. But if you go to Just Watch,
on Vudu though, right? I'm sure it's on Vudu.
It's on everything, I'm sure. It's on Apple. It's got like $4 on Apple. I was trying to get you like something on Netflix, but I don't know if it's free anywhere right now.
That's fine. It's all right.
But yeah, it's actually.
If it's different if you're trying to get me to spend $5 to watch Air Bud, but you're selling this movie that it's well worth the $4 investment. So I'm happy to do it.
You like William H. Macy, right? He's pretty solid.
Of course.
So Deep Water is what we're watching.
No.
The Cooler.
The Cooler.
Are you upset?
Okay.
I think it's a good movie. Are you upset? You wanted a bad movie?
I'm upset it's not Deep Blue Sea 2. I'm upset I just discovered that movie exists. That's what I'm upset about.
That if you want.
Well, I want to save it now. Okay, The Cooler is easy. Also, Steve, if you want to pull it up, I don't know if StreamYard is going to break. We have 6 things on the screen, but there you go. Okay. Yeah, so don't worry about my lineup, but Dean's lineup is on the right.
There it is.
Dean and Rich for sure played Jonathan Taylor. I purposely flexed Juju, trying to get 2 touchdowns off Jonathan Taylor leverage. Steve, did you play Jonathan Taylor?
I did not play Jonathan Taylor.
Okay. Well, I was the donkey that played Chase Claypool, trying to get unique around Justin Fields. So trust me, it didn't matter at all. And then Dean, I think, the unique part was clearly tagging along a 13.5-point Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You're the only person who rostered him. 3 of us got in on Tony Pollard. That's the lineup.
Yeah,
and of course, Barkley.
We all had Christian Kirk, I think. I ran as Trevor Lawrence stack, so there's their thing, guys. You can't compete with these quarterbacks, man. Trevor Lawrence had a good game, but you just can't compete with these quarterbacks, man. We talk about you guys want to play Kirk Cousins this week. You want to play Marcus Mariota? Can't do it, man. You just can't.
Yeah.
What'd you put up, Rich? Your big lineup on FanDuel, like 185 or so?
In that area, it was Mahomes' team. The best lineup was the Mahomes team.
He outscored me. He was second.
All right. I look forward to getting your recommendation or your review of The Cooler. We'll talk about it next week. And again, I mentioned if somebody, tell us what you think of The Cooler, and not the chat. The chat, no, when you're watching on the replay on YouTube, and best response, or tell us the movie that you think that we should recommend next week for the losers. And I'll pick somebody and give them a 1 week free of RotoGrinders Premium. If you've lasted this long in this podcast, we do appreciate it. We also will be back early next week for Thanksgiving, talking the Thanksgiving slate. So that'll be fun. That'll be a good time for sure. John, as always, tell the people, the 7 people that still don't know where to find you. They know where to find you, but just in case, where do they find you on the interwebs?
As Jessel said at the top of the show, this John guy is everywhere. 4for4.com, waiver wire column if you're still in those regular season streets. I will also have playoff only content. If you still want to subscribe for 50% off, there's still half a season less, and playoff content for FFPC, underdog, everything else. I'll definitely be handling on top of DFS. Short slates are usually my best, which is why I'm very, very excited about Thanksgiving. Hopefully to create a cash pool, a little bankroll here this week to get ready to hammer Thanksgiving slate.
Rich?
You see it there at Lord Reeves on Twitter. I don't have to hawk anything this week because everything on the site is free this week. Worksheet's free. All of Warren's picks are free. Everything's free at Sharp Football.
Sweet. All right. We do appreciate y'all staying with us for the hour and 30 minutes or so. It was a long pod. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. The NFL Pick 6 Week 11 show is in the books. On behalf of RotoGrinders, on behalf of John and Rich and producer Steve, Paris Hilton, Ben DiNucci, Brent Musburger,
and Scournick, 14 yards.
Scournick, and Thrive. We do appreciate it. Hopefully y'all win some money this week. Good luck. We're out of here. Holler.